So I don't really have to post the bloom calendar. We can talk about that pretty much off the top of our head. It is two main plants that may or may not be blooming in your area. One is goldenrod and the other one is knotweed. And I had really high hopes for goldenrod going into its bloom season, which was a couple of weeks ago, and it just didn't pan out in my area. So it looked like it was going to get nice and golden and be a productive plant. Bees were working it for a while. I was optimistic, and then all of a sudden, it stopped producing. And I think it's drought related. I mean, we had a really extensive, intensive drought, so I don't think it did goldenrod any good to go through that. And so I don't know what you guys are getting, but for goldenrod, I know it's out and bees are working it. But if you have like 20 colonies to try to satisfy with a field of goldenrod, it's not working out because I'm not smelling it cure in the colonies. And it smells, has a really distinct smell. The only one that I know of that has that kind of smell when it's curing, or there are other ones that you can smell, but this one is pronounced. Goldenrod has a sour, sort of sweet smell when it permeates the whole yard when it's really productive. And then, of course, knotweed, that came on strong. The bees were working it like crazy. It took a long time in my area to actually come out and flower. But then I noticed today the flowers are burning. It looks like it's backing off. So a little too early for both of those plant sources to not produce in my area. I don't know how they're doing in your area. Anybody see anything else except for those two plants? Of course, there's a lot of sustaining blooms out there that help. There's some little plants that are related to buckwheat that are out. Tear thumb, arrowleaf tear thumb is out. It's a nice little, beautiful little white flower, and honeybees work that, and that's out in all over the fields. But that's not something that you can count on helping your colony get through the winter.
KP is saying that he's seeing asters in his area.
Yeah. There will be there's two kinds of asters that we generally see a little bit later, but if you've seen them already, that's good and bad. Aster, when it gets into your colonies, it has tendency to crystallize right away. So, beekeepers that want to produce a real quality honey that doesn't crystallize before you put the cap on the jar, they want to try to keep aster out of their colonies. When I was harvesting 2 harvests of honey, one what I would call mid-season, early summer honey, which was from more or less spring blooms, May and then June, and I would at the end of July, I would harvest that harvest. That's the only one I harvest now, and I don't go after the fall honey, which was delicious, but I had a lot of. I discovered that if I took fall honey, I had a higher overwinter kill rate. So even if I fed back syrup, it wasn't good for the colonies. So I stopped doing that. But it is a delicious honey, and I don't know if you're trying to make honey, if you're collecting aster, it's going to crystallize. And if you're only making honey for yourself, the crystals will stay in the colony over winter. Bees will chew them out and throw them away in the spring. The crystals, I'm saying, if they clean out all of the comb, that's great. You don't have a problem. But if they don't do that, then that actually acts as seed comb for seed crystals for the next crop, the early spring crop and summer crop. And that will crystallize faster than normal also. Right? So there's a little trick there to making sure aster doesn't interfere with your colony's ability to make nice, clear honey in the following year. Peter, you didn't get a chance last week, Peter, to go over the bloom piece. Can you do that now?
Okay, well, again, there's a few of us that have been putting, blooms we see out there, and you just mentioned a lot of them. I know George was just sneaking some in for goldenrod and Japanese knotweed. Um, but it's a lot of the stuff that you have mentioned. Um, and then some of these, I put in, and then they may not be very much value to the honeybees, but I put them in anyway. But I have done research to try and figure out which are the most of the most value, and that's what I try to do here in this last column.
Very nice. Thank you.
But anyway, just switching over to this database of what we would expect to see in September of some degree of highness in value in nectar or pollen. Again, a lot of these you may have mentioned. I know, we have an East hyssop in our yard, and it blooms for, I don't know, it seems like 4 months, and there's always bees on it. And then, there's several others here. Asters you mentioned.
Is this, it gets succeeded in bloomscapes, but it will naturally arrive in a clear-cut field, maybe the second or third year, and then it'll bloom, and you'll think, wow, I'm getting a lot of hyssop, and the bees are working like crazy, and then it gets overwhelmed by other things in the succession of blooms. And so it's only there for a little while, but the cultivars, they still work that, but it's not enough, it has to be a real field of the stuff to satisfy your bees' need for nectar.
And then maybe Monarda, bee balm.
Yeah. Bee balm, yeah, and Canada thistle, if you're lucky enough to have that, that's another great source. But usually that's eradicated from open spaces. In my area, the town of Wallingford had 30, 40 acres of open space, and it was 2 acres of Canada thistle. I don't know if it's Canadian thistle or Canada thistle, but
there's a lot of black-eyed Susan out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people have it in their yards.
Hey, Peter, you seeing any signs of I got a ton of wild cucumber growing, right? But I don't see honeybees on it. Do you see any of that? Or Bill, do you know, do they go after wild cucumber?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've never seen it either, so.
I'll send you a pic.
Okay. I mean, I've never seen bees.
Bees. Got it.
I know if you leave
borage, of course,
plants without cutting them down after they produce vegetables, they flower well into the fall, even like November, and the bees will go crazy over it.
Hey, Peter, this is George. Let me ask you a question, just a protocol, I guess, for entering on your
okay,
bloom calendar here. So like I live in Guilford, I work in Stratford, I'm up in the valley a lot. Do you encourage like multiple entries for the same things I may see? I happen to be out in sort of, out in the fields sometimes, or outdoors anyway, in those areas. So would you like me to make entries?
That's up to you.
Okay.
Sometimes I go bike riding or whatever town I'm in.
Yep.
I'll take out my phone and take pictures. So
yeah, right.
That's generally around me, but absolutely.
Okay. So yeah. So I was doing that for a while. I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing here. So multiple entries at different locations is encouraged.
Yeah, and that was sort of the intent of this map thing, where again, we don't have that many people, but like we could see, for example, what's happening in this area. This happened to be Naugatuck, I guess. There was only one.
Oh, that was me.
Okay.
Yeah.
but we can, there's some flexibility with this to look at different towns and different areas. So yeah, no, that would,
Okay.
however you want to use it, this is, just trying to try this out, see how it works.
And
I
the,
think it's great. It's
yeah, and
interesting.
the instructions are on how to post are on our site. So I don't know exactly where they are, but they are. I know that Sarah put them on there. So,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah, it's
complicated.
super easy. If you're familiar with a spreadsheet, it's super easy. And
Okay.
it's all pull down options. So it works great. Yeah, I think it's really interesting.
Okay, yep. And let's let this thing roll. I mean, it doesn't get erased in a couple of months. Is that right, Peter? It stays on. So,
Oh, it'll stay on and, at the end of the year, I could pull a report and see, okay, here's kind of what we saw in the months we saw them, that type of thing.
yeah,
And then we could start clean next year, and I could save that data.
yeah,
Wow.
okay, great.
So the
All
very
right.
first question we have is from Bob and Linda. And Bob and Linda ask, how do you feel about leaving one honey super on over winter?
Well, I don't have any feeling about that at all. I mean, you can do it. You just got to make sure it doesn't have a queen excluder above it. That's a matter of a beekeeping preference or management style. If you want to leave a super of honey on a colony over winter, that's fine. What will happen is if you are particular about what is in your honeycomb and you don't want brood in it ever to darken the cells and leave behind cocoons and all of the stuff that happens when a frame is used for brood, you won't be happy because that super will be where your queen is laying in the springtime. And it would be unusual if she wasn't up there laying. But that's normally what happens. The colony moves up, progresses up through its stores, and it ends up in the super, and she's laying up there, so you have brood up there. And then in the spring, you have to make a decision about what you do with that. And it can get complicated because first of all, if it's too late in the spring, you'll have brood in the super, a lot of it usually, and then you'll have also in the deep below it some super, some brood. And in that case, you can't separate them. In my opinion, you have to leave them together because that's the way they constructed the brood nest. That's the pattern they're using to keep to distribute warmth. And if you break them up by say, oh, well, I'm going to now take the top box, the super, and put it down below, reverse them, and try to get them to, you're playing Russian roulette because you can lose that brood by chilling it down below. So you got to leave it alone. Now, what you can do if you want to get your super back to being a super, you can find the queen, put her down in the bottom box below it, below that super full of brood, and put a queen excluder in, and then just let all of that brood emerge. Right. So, and then you'll have an open super again. The difficulty with that technique is that usually the queen has also laid out a number of drone cells in those supers. Those drones cannot get back through the queen excluder. So you'll strand that population of drones will be stranded in that top super. And you'll find if you leave them in there for any period of time, you'll find their little heads rolling around on the queen excluder, but their bodies will be missing because they'll be trying to get through, and the bees will pull them through, and it's a sad thing. So yeah, so it requires some vigilance about drones. Cannibalize yellow jackets or other wasps? No. Honeybees don't cannibalize them. You might see them trying to kill them, but they don't eat them. Right? They eat their own brood. And yeah, no, they're not a source of protein. As far as I know, you'd have to show me where a Western honeybee has been documented eating a bee that they kill, they usually just leave it there. That's not the same for, that's not the reverse. Wasps are specialists in turning in eating other insects, and so are yellow jackets. And they're omnivores. They will go after nectar and protein from the abdomen of bees that they kill. If there are a lot of dead bees outside your colony, or even a few, you'll see yellow jackets down there will be cannibalizing the insects' abdomens. And also wasps will do the same thing. They'll fly away with that, like a bald-faced hornet or white-faced hornet, whatever you want to call them, will pick up, chop the abdomen off, pick that up and bring it back to the colony and feed that to their brood. So, yeah, but I haven't seen it the other way around.
So we had a lot of comments about when we were talking about the pollen or the blooming calendar. So a lot of people were giving what they were saying, purple loosestrife and black-eyed Susan.
Yeah.
So that was great. So here is a question from me. I wanted to get in the queue officially. So, this is actually, I guess, for you and Paula, right? So one of the things that I've been noticing in my area, and not just in my area, but when I drive around as well, is really comes down to the environment, right? Our bee environment, our pollinators, right? What they're going after. You mentioned it earlier about the loosestrife, or sorry, the goldenrod. Some of it is blooming, some of it is not. But what I'm noticing is excessive mowing, or like mowing down fields completely for no apparent reason, none that I'm aware of anyways. Is there anything that we can do as a group, a Connecticut Bee Association, to kind of talk with officials at the state or town level about maybe just holding back during certain periods of time to get pollinators, not just bees, but butterflies, etc., through important parts of the year? Is there anything that we can do on that?
I think you can, go to a select person or somebody in that town. I mean, 2 years ago, they did that in Cheshire. They do it quite often, Wallingford's open space, but normally they do it in the fall. But yeah, to cut back all of that bergamot and goldenrod and everything else that's in those fields, to just do some mindless mowing for some reason.
Correct.
That's I think in the town of Cheshire, when I asked the operator of the vehicle, he said, yeah, we've got, we had some spare time, and I think they had some budget money left over. So what they decided to do was, ruin a bunch of fields. They came back with a vengeance, but they came back with a vengeance, but you change the seed bank in it. If you mow down some flowers before they've had a chance to set their seeds, the seed bank will change, and you can get a lot of mugwort instead of goldenrod, or you can get it, something else that's more proliferates better after it's mowed. So yeah, I don't know. So it's a good question, and I've seen it happen, and it gives me the chills when I see it. What do you think, Paula?
I mean, I think that, yeah, you can definitely make a difference, but it involves, getting involved with your towns. I think probably the different towns is the easiest way to go. Not really the easiest, because then you have all those different towns, but I think that you make more headway with a local town. You can actually talk to the people better than trying to tackle it on a state level, I think.
Yeah, forget about the state level. You wouldn't get anybody interested. Yeah.
You know what the challenge is I went to the town of Farmington. I went as far as making signs as feeding the bees, please don't mow, stake them in the ground, right? And they mow right up to the sign, and then 10 feet after the sign, they continue to mow, right? I'm like, hey, thanks, appreciate that, right? But so the town of Farmington, I walked into the town hall and started saying, okay, listen, guys, who do I need to talk to about the mowing? And they did not want to hear me. They're just like, hey, thanks. You know what? We're busy, but come back next Tuesday, right? Read between the lines. That's why I was wondering if there was a way as an association with, Bill, the president, and Paula, the bee inspector, state inspector, if collectively we can do something about it.
Yeah, it's something to think about. So I think that's what we should do. We'll give it a little bit of thought. I know that, I agree with Paula, and Farmington, yeah, they just probably want to get rid, but they didn't mow the sign down.
No.
That's
Yeah.
what I thought you were gonna say. They mowed the
No,
sign.
they didn't. I actually, yeah, I had
So
conversations.
maybe they didn't, so maybe they thought if they left like 2 feet on each side of the sign, that was all you needed for the.
A
Exactly.
little ray of hope.
That's a little what,
Yeah,
that's what you did.
Like a fire hydrant, like you can't park right in front of it and 50.
Yeah, 25 feet away,
Yeah.
yeah. I see, yeah, okay, that worked that way, all right.
Yes.
But it's a great question, Gary, thank you.
No, no worries. All right, so let's jump back in. Can you save frames that had wax moth damage or just throw them away?
Well, I throw them away unless I can pop, if they're plastic, if they're wood frames with plastic foundation, then I'll pop out the plastic foundation and put a new piece in. But in old school, with wired foundation, you will see old wooden frames with all kinds of wax moth damage. And back in the day, you'd see that all the time. But you were wiring wax foundation in. So they would just tear out all the wax foundation, wire new wax foundation in and be off with it. So yeah, so you can save the wooden frame. Bees will not clean that up, as far as I know. I mean, they just don't like to. I think in a natural tree cavity, wax moths serve a wonderful purpose. They go in there and they eat out all the old wax, and eventually the cocoons and all of that just disappear, and bees can come back in and start over. But on bee frames, if you look at those wax moths coming crawling all over those frames and popping their heads out of the middle of stuff, it's just too disgusting for me. I throw them out. I pop them out and throw them out. Yeah, so I don't keep them.
This was on frames that I had stored away because
Oh.
I didn't even put these boxes on the hives this year because there just wasn't a cause for me to put anything on there. So it was just stored away, and they apparently found it. So
Oh yeah, they'll eventually find it. I mean, I used to have little samples of comb underneath my workbench down in my basement that I would take out periodically and go and bring them to talks to show people what a kind of comb was. Wax moth finally found that after like about 4 years. Yeah. And I had this beautiful flower pot that I brought to Bee Talks when we were there live, where I rescued a colony out of a flower pot that was turned upside down. It was a clay pot. And the extraordinary architecture of the comb inside that pot, I froze it. I did everything I could, and the wax moth finally found it and destroyed it. And yeah, so yeah, they'll get it. Now, if you're Lauren Donager's on this call. She purchased a special case. What's the name of those, Lauren? Why don't I ever remember what you call those wonderful?
They're too expensive, probably is why, but I really love them.
Yeah.
They're called hive butlers.
Hive butlers, yes.
Yeah, I have a very small house. I don't have, the basement and like a little shed to store things, and I just really, really hate mice. So they fit 10 frames. If you do get them, ask for the supports for the side, because when the honey supers are filled, it can bow in a little, although she might have addressed that. I was like a very early adopter, but they are opaque. So, or wait, now I don't know my 4th grade science. They're not clear, but light comes through them. So it makes, it decreases the wax moth issue. I really like them.
And you can freeze them too, right? If you wanted to, you can freeze the frames and put them in.
I freeze the frames and then I put them in the hive butler. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to see one. There it is. Thank you, Gary. That's a hive butler.
You can get them directly from Hive Butler, and there's like a deal where if you buy 5 or something, but really they're great. And all summer I when I drive around with one in my car that has the mesh lid.
Yes.
So if I come across a swarm, I'm ready to go.
Oh, nice.
Put them in there. I keep just like a veil and some gloves right in the hive butler in a couple of frames. So I think they're
Cool.
great.
There you go, Bill.
What I also ended up doing was to flame the inside of the boxes after I got rid of the frames. Because the inside of the boxes were also covered with moths and the larvae.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you don't have to do that with wax moth, but if you don't have a little freezer that you can put the whole box in,
No,
you
I don't
if you
have
don't
that.
have, yeah, really. So if you've got, in my case, since I accumulated a number of colonies over the years, and there was times when I was trying to manage 50 or 60 colonies by myself, I had other equipment that I purchased to kind of mitigate any possibility of wax moth. And one of them was a freezer that was big enough to put whole frames in. And I would
Yep.
just freeze honey frames in there and, and everything else like that. So freezing them is a good idea. They freezing 72 hours is what the comb honey people recommend. But I think 24 hours is enough to kill any larva that's in there and eggs, or any eggs actually.
Phil, I wanted to second the freezer idea. I bought I don't know, years ago. It was inexpensive. It's a small chest freezer, and it will, depending on if it's deeps or mediums, like
Yeah.
20, easily 20 mediums. And I have a lineup of what's going into the freezer and what's going into the hive butler. But the using my kitchen freezer was like quickly unacceptable. So it's in the basement. It's disgusting. It does the job.
Yeah, mine's in the basement also. Well, it's actually in my honey house, but it's also disgusting. But I get in there and try to clean it every once in a while when I get ambitious. But it gets all kinds of stuff in it, wax, all kinds of junk. Yeah. So anyway, so that wax moth will be, small hive beetle and wax. By the way, let me an informal survey. We got 40 people or something on this call. So, have folks been seeing small hive beetles this year in the county?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not a lot.
Not a lot. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Nothing overwhelming, but they're there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just starting to see them numbers creeping up a little.
Okay. All right. So we're seeing a little fall invasion. Now, whose picture is this?
This is Gary, Bill. The picture I sent you, remember?
Oh, this is yours.
Yeah, this is my guys. So these are all live, right? I noticed walking by one of my hives one morning. I'm like, why is there such a number of dead bees in there or on the front? So I opened it up and noticed that this was a strong hive that I just split. It was a walkaway split for this year. It was beautiful the last time I looked. I went in a week later, took a look, and I'm like, 2 frames of bees existed. No, the queen was there, but no brood, no eggs, nothing. I take out a couple more frames and I look down where all the dead bees are. These guys were just slithering in there. So I put a brand new bottom board in, took that bottom board out, took the sliding bottom board out, and torched them all. And then I got beetle traps for every single one of my hives. So even regardless if they're walkaway splits or if they've got a mature hive, it was terrible.
So on that picture, if you put that back up again,
Yep.
Here, I don't know. So there's one outstandingly big one down in the bottom on the right. That one right there. So if you're seeing this on a computer, if you're looking at this, or even on a phone, and you can enlarge that image right there, you will see the 3 legs that I try to get folks to recognize as, all right, if he's bringing it up for us. So just shift it up a little bit, Gary. All right, keep going. Can you get a little larger? All right, there they are. See them? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That's detritus, that fourth one. Those legs are attached to the small hive beetle. There it is. Those are the 3 primary legs. And and the small hive beetle abbreviation is SHB. And they have 3 legs. So that's how you know that those are not wax moths. Anyway, those are small hive beetles. Thanks a lot.
So Bill, last year there were a lot of small hive beetles. They just disgusted me. They were so gross. And so over the winter, I bought these 2 from Dayton. They were supposed to be small hive beetle sort of trap things that went under the screened bottom board, but I couldn't get, like, the what mesh looked too small for a small hive beetle to get through. And I asked Dayton over and over, and they just didn't answer me. I never put anything in them, partly because I was not seeing. I've seen very few this year. I also bought this massive box of this specific H700, which you can't get a small amount because that's like the specific type of cloth. It did not get, maybe it caught 1 or 2 small hive beetles, but there were a lot of dead bees. And now I just have a lot of cloth.
Yeah, you and me both. So I bought that same box because you can't buy a little box. So I bought that same. I spent 3 years giving it away at the bee yard in little pieces. But yeah, I didn't find it anywhere near as effective. It will catch a small hive beetle now and then, but it could also catch your queen. That's the problem with them as far as I'm concerned. And they're not anywhere near as effective as the beetle jail trap, which is the oil trap. And I have a little Peter's also fools around with computers, and he has a printer that he uses. And he made an official plastic small beetle jail holder. And I have some wood ones at the yard that you can use and then fill them because they get a little clumsy and you can spill some oil in the colony. So so I use the beetle trap, the beetle jail, not the beetle buster. The beetle buster is the one with the black top, and that just is an invitation for small hive beetles to hide underneath that black top. And the beetle jail, they can't do that. So yeah, we got in real trouble.
Well, are you finding your oil traps to be pretty full, or are they not getting super filled up?
Well, I've discovered, no, they're not getting filled up at all. 1 or 2 beetles in it. All right, so Laura, for your information, a small hive beetle is 35 millimeters. So that's number 7 hardware cloth. So that's the ideal size square. Number 6 hardware cloth will also work, but it seems like beetles can get through that, but you can't buy number 7.
I want them to be able to get through it because
I know. And if it's smaller mesh than number 7 or number 6, they won't be able to get through it.
Oh, maybe the mesh was small enough. I was trying to share the picture from Dayton.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, we see it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I can't see that you can see it. Yeah, maybe I should have measured. All right. Well, I have it for next.
Well, it's either number 6. When I was going crazy, trying to build the ultimate sort of bottom board for my own apiaries, I was researching the size of small hive beetles. There are a couple different sizes. You'll see in the colony, there's a smaller one and then a larger one. And the smaller one will fit through almost anything, but the larger one needs 35 millimeters to get through.
I thought it was odd that they didn't just answer.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they won't be able to tell you that. Yeah, I guess they wouldn't be able to tell you that. So the difficulty with having a lot of small hive beetles in your boxes and putting in oil traps in both levels. Let's say you have 2 deeps and you've got oil traps in the top and oil traps in the bottom. The oil traps in the bottom will get plugged up with detritus that's dropping off of frames, cappings that the bees are chewing out to get at honey, or that pupae are adults are emerging and the cap material is falling through. So what happens to the bottom beetle jails is that the entrances get blocked, and of course they're not effective anymore after that. So you have to, if you do have a double layer, like I was going crazy and putting in 4 beetle traps in every single colony in the yard, the bottom ones were getting blocked. So beetles can hang around down there. So keep that in mind.
I'm interested in hearing strategies on how to reduce my hives down to 1 single deep for wintering over. I currently have 3 hives, each with 2 deeps and 1 honey super. I'm planning to do a modest harvest next week.
Wow. All right. So, well, your colony, of course, we know this from simple math, that your queen only needs 8 frames. Even if she's laying 2,000 eggs a day, she can't lay in the space that's provided with 8 deep Langstroth in a Langstroth box, 8 deep frames. She won't be able to fill those slots up faster than the first ones she laid emerge, and she can go back and lay in that. So we know that a single brood box works. The only problem is if you're going to try to convert it into a single brood box, that brood, which may only be 8 frames worth of brood, and that's all it will be actually, might be scattered between the upper box and the lower box. So a lot of beekeepers get confused about that when they see that their brood boxes have brood in both boxes. They're thinking, wow, this is a great queen. She's laying out like crazy. She's like filling up all of these boxes with brood. But if you actually measure the cubic centimeters of brood in those boxes like we have, you'll discover that it's only equivalent to 8 frames, even if it's scattered around all over the place. So you got a little problem if you're planning on harvesting honey and managing your single brood box. I would wait and see. First of all, I'd look at that box or boxes, and I would try to figure out what kind of brood is in them. At this point, I have colonies that are doing orientation flights in the afternoon, so I know there's plenty of brood in those ones, and other ones that have stopped completely brooding. So, so you'd have to manage that brood and try to get it all into one box. Now, later on in the season, I'll almost guarantee you that there'll be an empty box, and that will be your bottom deep. And then at that point, you can take it off, but you have to make certain that you have allowed that you've given them or provisioned them with enough resources to get through the winter, and that's usually going to be some kind of a super with honey on it up above it, or feeding it like crazy and seeing if you can get your brood down to 4 frames and your bees down to 4 or 5 frames or 6, and then honey super have honey on the full frames of honey, 4 of them or 5 on the in that deep, and they'll survive that way also. So you have to make sure it's not easy what you try to do, but it can be done. But that's how I would do it.
I am hoping to start beekeeping in the spring. Where are the best places to get equipment and nucs? And when is the best time to obtain equipment and order nucs?
Well, you got to order nucs if you're going to go with nucs, you're going to be later on in the year, in the season. You probably won't, who knows what's going to happen. I mean, last year we got really late nucs that I didn't get any, but folks got late nucs all over the place, which I don't know how they worked out. A nuc takes about 8 weeks to get up to full strength, whereas a box of bees might take 10 weeks, could take 11 weeks. So you have to get them ordered in late, if you can find somebody who will that's reliable, that will give you nucs in the following spring, and there's plenty of them out there. You just have to search for that. And they're also listed on our website, so go to ctbees.org and look at our resources page, and they will there's lists of equipment manufacturers and also suppliers of bees and nucs. And then you have to do that very early in the season, and then you can get your equipment anytime you want, and paint it and assemble it and paint it and do whatever you want to do with it over the winter time. That's a good time to do that kind of stuff if you're going to get started with in the spring. So that's the way you can do that. And then I suggest you go to our bee school and prepare mentally for the challenges that are going to come with your first adventure in beekeeping. And we offer a really comprehensive school that is taught by bee professionals like Dewey Curran and Randy Oliver and others that we have, and some master beekeepers. And so, so I recommend that you do it in that sequence. So you can get your equipment anytime, start your prep, start building stuff, or buy whole equipment, whatever it is, but learn how to use it over the winter by going to bee school, and then order your stuff as soon as you can when it becomes available, either packages or nucs. Don't wait until February to start. Even though there might be some out there, you can come up really short if you wait really long in the early spring.
This is my first bee anything, so bear with me. BEAR, right? Humor, gotta love it.
Nice.
What happens to the honey if you don't get rid of the beetles, and how does it affect the honey?
So small hive beetles do not make good nest mates with Apis mellifera, because what they do is they eat in the colony, and their larvae snake through the comb, and then they defecate in the colony. And so that's the problem. So when they defecate in the colony, you end up getting a fermentation. There's bacteria in the defecation, and it starts to ferment everything. So you get a slimy, fermented mess. The honey is absolute, and the smell will leave you with the thought that there's no way you're going to eat that honey. So I think it ruins the honey completely. And yes, the most disgusting pest we have. The most dangerous one, of course, is varroa, but the small hive beetle is really dangerous, a really disgusting pest. In Africa, I was surprised to see large hive beetles. A large hive beetle is about 40 times larger than a small hive beetle. It's a huge, huge beetle that infests colonies. And it eats whatever it wants in there because it's so huge when it gets in there. But then it just leaves. It doesn't defecate in the colony, so it takes some resources and goes. That's sort of like, an apartment dweller. So it comes in, and there's a relationship between the landlord, which are the bees, and this vagabond that comes in and just takes a few things and leaves. But that's not what happens with small hive beetles. They will make your beekeeping experience miserable. So with a lot of, I remember early on, this is many years ago, when we had our first wave of small hive beetles come through that. I had a bunch of larvae, like you saw Gary. Now Gary burned his. I don't know how he did that, but I thought, I went crazy. I was a new beekeeper, and I went, oh no. So I dug a hole and I said, I'll just dig a hole and bury all these larvae in the hole. Well, you know what? That's how they reproduce. I said, then I go back and I had to dig the hole out as soon as wait a minute, hold on, wait.
Oh, no.
So I went back there and dug the hole out. And so anyway,
We have a question from Frank. We caught 3 swarms in June and we've been feeding a 1-to-1 on the late June swarm. We noticed one of the swarms does not have a lot of stored honey. So we switched this week to 2-to-1. Is taking one, one is taking, one is ignoring.
yeah, and so yeah, that's bee biology. You know, that's the one that's taking, you know, who knows if it needs it or not. What, you know, the whole idea about this is how much resources are actually stored in the colony at this point. So that's what you want to know. I mean, the ones that's ignoring it, they might, you know, if there's a flow on of any kind, bees will generally ignore your syrup feeding. Or they start to slack off a whole lot about it, you know, so because they prefer natural nectar over something that they can get out of a feeder. But if they're not taking, if they're taking it, then where's it going? You know, are they not good at foraging? You know, have they stored up enough for this winter? So your idea is to get these bees into shape for the winter, meaning they have enough stores in that colony, maybe 30 pounds, 40 pounds. If you insulate, you know, you can get away with a little bit less, a poundage of honey as resources for the bees to make it through the winter. And see what they're doing. I mean, it sounds like you have some swarms that are good at stuff and some swarms that aren't so good at. Usually swarms are pretty healthy and they will manage the colony fine, but if they behave differently, then inspect them very thoroughly to figure out what might be going on. You could have one colony which you had a virgin in June, May, June. It's probably not. You could have a swarm that you caught that had a virgin. Did she get mated? You know, if your other ones are prime swarms, they have mated queens. So if you saw brood in all the colonies, then fine. You know, but a lot of folks will catch a swarm, put it in a box, start feeding it, and then don't look at it for quite a while and go back in there and find out that it's queenless. You know, and the other sort of indication that you can get that something might be particularly peculiar about your colony during this time of year is if you see your colony is plugging frames with pollen. You know, when that happens, that's usually a queen problem. Usually it's queenless, but there could be other problems with your queen. You know, so what happens is some kind of pheromone signal gets reversed, and they end up plugging up. And with frames plugged with pollen, those are hard to use because the next year, they may or may not spend the time to clean that out of there. Pollen's hard this is dried pollen, not bee bread. It's hard for the bees to get access to that, and they don't want to spend time fooling around with old pollen. They just take it and throw it out. So yeah, so look up. Those are indications that something's going on. So see what's happening in that frame, in those boxes.
When is the best time, and I apologize if I slurred your name again, Deborah. When is the best time to put on robbing screens? After sunset or just before dawn?
Well, if you have, so by the way, just a little bit of advertisement for a company that I think has come up with what is a really all-season robber screen. And that is Be Smart's new robber screen product. Now, the reason I would even mention this, because I get nothing from anyone as far as saying anything about their product, but Randy Oliver, who's a friend of mine and a wonderful beekeeper, practical beekeeper, almond pollinator, and scientific researcher, he uses beekeepers sponsored. He asks for funds. Many beekeepers give him funds, and he uses those funds to do basic research. And he did a series of of articles and some intensive research on robber screens. He went way back to the beginning, their beginning use, and he figured it all out. And I think that, yeah, that's their old one. So their new one is a little, I don't think they're advertising their new one yet. But Randy did a bunch of work that inspired the owner of Be Smart equipment to look at his design and change it so that you could use it all year round. And it's a more effective robbing screen. Now I'm gonna install 6 of them at the bee yard on this Saturday, and leave them on all winter. Now the innovation is the way that bees enter it. Now, what I've noticed with older robber screens, bees are asked to do sort of a lot of different acrobatics to get in and out of the robber screen, go up to separate doors, or come out of opposite entrances, and all in those robber screens all rely on the fact that the bees that live in that colony have a pheromone that other bees can trace, and it comes from their glands in their feet. So they'll leave a little footprint when they leave the colony. If they walk up the side of the colony, they're leaving little footprints, and that footprint odor stays. Other bees will follow that to get out of a robber screen. Say, for instance, has an upper door like the one you just saw. And then the bees that belong in that colony will follow that pheromone scent to get back. Once they come back from foraging, they'll follow that pheromone scent and go back, get back in the colony. Bees that don't belong in that colony don't know that scent and don't know that it's a way to get into colony. So that requires some learning and a little bit of difficulty on part of bees. And sometimes bees don't get used to them doors at all. And you have to just take the robber screen back off and let your whole field force go back in. But the new screen has a front entrance, and the front entrance has a shield over the top of it, which simulates a natural entrance into a tree colony or some other natural abode that the bees have selected. And that, it turns out, a block over the entrance top is what signals guard bees to perform a task that they would normally perform in a natural colony. So it took Randy a little bit of work to figure this all out, and it took an innovative plastic designer to put it in practice. So if you want now I've run them. I ran some prototypes for him because he asked me to, and I discovered that they work much better than a traditional robber screen. So I can say with certainty that they work great. So if you want them, try them. Be Smart is Be Smart Designs, and I don't think they're out yet for sale, but they might be. I don't know. Anyway, if you want to see one in action, you can come up to the bee yard on Saturday.
Bill, we have a question about beetle traps. Do you keep beetle traps in a hive, or do you place them based on a time of the year?
Well, since I was paranoid about the attack of small hive beetles 2 years ago, I left them in over winter. So I left them in all year long, and I also have them in colonies now that I have them in. You know, have had them in since spring. So yeah, I'll leave them in for as long as there's another beetle hanging around on the inner cover when I take the telescoping cover off. I see any small hive beetle, I go after it with the trap. So that's the way I do it. I don't, it's worked. So that's that way.
Where do you put it within the hive?
Well, on the end frames, I'll put it on the right and left side. At the end, top, and I stagger them, one on the top end, one on the bottom end, but on the end frames, because what bees chase the small hive beetles around, and they normally chase them into the corners. So as close to the corner as you can get those traps, that's where they're really effective. When last year when we were at the height of our struggles with small hive beetles, I was getting 50 beetles in a trap. So, and some less, of course, and each colony was sort of individual. They'd get 25, 30 or so. And yeah, there they are. Those the beetle gel. Now they're made in China. I don't know if we can still get them. I'm sure you can. There's probably a big stock pack.
I just bought 20 and no issue getting them. I actually got them the next day. So it was
Okay.
good. Only problem I find with these, Bill, is that the bees purplize the holes. Those slats.
Well, yeah, either it's propolized or it's detritus that's fallen in them.
Yeah.
So figure that out. And then you just have to like kick it down there. Now,
Yep.
If you leave it in too long and you are allowing wax cappings and other detritus to dilute the oil or even mix with it, or if you leave it in for a very long time and there's a collection of that stuff there, you will get bees, small hive beetles to reproduce in it. So it has to be just oil in there. Make sure that you don't leave it in and neglect it. And then if it fills up with stuff, small hive beetles obviously can survive in oil for a little while. I know they can. They can't survive in the oil, but they can survive if there's detritus floating on top. They can lay in there, and you can have a trap that's making small hive beetles. You don't want that.
All right, we've got one. I think this is the last question. Has anyone tried out the Apimaye hives?
Oh yeah, I think there's Lauren. Didn't you have an Apimaye hive?
Lauren's commenting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think she ended up hating them.
So Lauren, I'm not sure if she's still on. Lauren, you might be stepping away from the computer, but I'll read. Lauren says, yes, I did not like them at all. I have two. I kept meaning to sell them. Here are my complaints. Plastic, so they do OAV easily. Can't do OAV easily. Oxalic acid, I'm presuming vapor.
Yeah.
And the way the boxes fit together smashes a lot of bees when reassembling. And Lauren's back. So there we go.
About the Apimaye, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I wrote down the things I don't like about them. I use condensing hives. I don't want that top ventilation.
Yeah.
The syrup, it's a very shallow tray, so if you have to take it off, it's just slopping all over, and then you have, robbing happening. And the winter feeder, they couldn't figure out their way back down, and they would die on the top. But the main thing was the OAV. I even bought like a little stopper thing for the type of vaporizer I have. And even then, I didn't like that. I couldn't do an effective OAV.
It's just a lot of parts in the box too. I mean, it's expensive too, and there's a lot of parts you got to put together and keep track of.
I don't have the Apimaye hive, so I can't comment on its features.
Yeah, they're complicated, and yeah, and so they're cross purpose. If you're thinking about running your colonies as condensing colonies, meaning no upper ventilation and lots of interesting and thick insulation around them, then that has the insulation, but it has a bunch of ventilation on top that you have to deal with. So anyway, yeah.
Hive IQ, I have some of the same complaints.
Yeah, what'd you find out for Hive IQ?
I mean, it's, serving as a place for me to set my smoker while I'm working my traditional wooden hives.
Yeah,
They're very, very tight, very tight. It's supposed to be 9 frames. It is a tight 9 frames.
Yeah.
At the time I got them, they didn't have a medium for super, so you'd have to put in deep frames, and I didn't want to do that. So I only used it for overwintering. The hive that I overwintered in did just fine, but my other hives did just fine as well. There also wasn't an effective way to put a sugar cake on because there's no real shim. So yeah, I don't like the Hive IQ either. You know,
Yeah,
that
that's
came out of
Australia.
Australia where they
Yeah.
don't have to have a winter patty. It's definitely not designed for us. So
Yeah, so so they have, so yeah. So Hive IQ has potential, but yeah, it has to be Americanized or USized so that our beekeeping practices like shims, like an effective queen excluder, like a way of really to vaporize. People like to vaporize stuff. I tried to do that in the Hive IQ box by putting a little piece of thin sheet metal down so I could cross that with the hot vapor. And then I extended the pipe on my vaporizer to get. So this all sounds good. I mean, I'm a mechanical engineer. So like this was going to work, I'm sure, so I love making gadgets. So I made this gadget. None of the oxalic acid came out of the tube because it lost all of its heat and it hardened inside the tube. So I couldn't get it to work. So, yeah, so there's really no way to vaporize them as far as I know.
Bill, I didn't like it from just a management perspective. I used one you let us have, our org have, and
yeah.
I just found it to be really slippery. Like I like to tilt the box up when I'm doing an inspection sometimes, kind of pull the top box back. And I had one time where just the whole thing just slid right off and just the whole top box fell. I just found it to be like the plastic itself was the way I manage hives and do inspections just too slippery, the material.
Yeah. We don't have, I don't think we have an answer for, unless you build your own, so there's some folks building long hives that are insulated, but they have wooden sides, so if you want to build your own box, like the way that they were built back in the day, they were always built with a double wall and then filled with some kind of insulation on the outside. So, even Langstrath commented that it should have a double wall with insulation in it, but it won't be able to be sold because it'll be too expensive. So, that's where we're at with that stuff. But but I like your idea, Lauren. I'm using them for the same reason. You can overwinter in them. So if you get a colony that is, and we're going to do that in the yard on Saturday, I'm going to use the box that we have there. I've given away most of the equipment that they gave me. And I'm gonna just transfer the frames out and into the insulated box. So I don't have to do much work on, but that colony I'm going to put in there already has resources, in it. So
and that would be the issue. They'd have to have, so you could be no risk of needing to supplement with sugar cake.
Yeah,
no
you can't do it. Yeah, you have to put another box on top, but I have mediums also for that. They gave me a bunch of mediums. So I could do it. If I wanted to put a sugar cake or something in it, I could. But I want to just get it into, use them for wintering over. The bees don't care. If you can change their box, if you just don't change their location, they'll be fine like that. All right, Gary, what do we got?
One last question from Frank, right? And it's a good one, right? Would you treat with Formic Pro now or oxalic vapor?
Well, that question, it doesn't. So oxalic vapor, I would not. If the colony has brood, you're wasting your time because most of the varroa will be in the brood. So you don't have, but there is some phoretic mites out now, or questing mites, or whatever you want to call them, wandering mites. And you can get a certain amount of them. And there are probably a lot, there's probably at this point a much larger mite population in your colony than there is a bee pupa. So we're at the point now where you see big numbers. But if the colony, so let me make this very clear. This is a biology question. If your colony has brood, oxalic acid will be less effective than formic at this point. Formic will kill the brood, the varroa undercapped, in-cap brood. So yeah, that's what I would do. And then I would overwinter with Viroxan. Well, listen, thank you so much. Paula, do you have anything you want to finish with? Do you have anything you want to say, add?
I do. I just want to remind people that it's time to renew your honeybee registry.
Yes, yes.
We sent out the renewal notices August 18th. So if you haven't seen it, go back and look in on that day in your email, and it should be there from the Connecticut Ag Experiment Station. And if you still don't have it, it's probably because you weren't registered last year. So go to elicense.ct.gov and register your bees, or you can send me an email or call me, and I'm happy to help you get that all straightened out.
All right, cool. Okay, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate your participation.